Hello, Pedigree Stage Stop race fans. Here I am with Austin Forney. Austin, how are you?
Good. Good to see you again, Sebastian.
Yeah, it's almost like a yearly tradition now, isn't it?
My favorite time of year. Yes, sir.
So yeah, so how many stage stops is this for you? You started with dogs in 2006, I think, but how many stage stops?
First one was 2016 when it was still the old pool format, which we're using this year, and the longer stages, the 50s. So this will be my ninth consecutive year.
Well, you're certifiably addicted.
Oh, absolutely. My wife knows it. My family knows it. Everybody knows it.
So what got you to switch from cattle to dogs?
Um, well, it's kind of a funny story if you know cattle. Um, so I left the ranch when I graduated college in 2004 in Nebraska, and I went up to Yellowstone to go work in the equestrian department in Montana, and I got into a pretty bad horse accident. I got thrown off a young horse, and it was a heck of a wreck, and I ended up moving back to the ranch and had to kind of make a decision if I wanted to stay on the ranch or go do something else. So at that point, it took me to a job in Michigan where I learned how to run sled dogs, and I was there for a long time. Bumped over to Minnesota, and then eventually moved back to the ranch. But this time, when I moved back to the ranch, I moved with 30 sled dogs.
And then they
And
booted you out.
what's that?
And then they booted you out.
Then you kind of well, yeah, I went back to the ranch, and my wife and I were there for quite a few years. And if you know anything with cattle ranching, it runs the busiest time of the year runs about the same time as dog mushing season. When the cows are having their babies, their calves, that's typically anywhere from January to April, and that kind of conflicts with dog mushing season. So there'd be nights, you'd be in the calving barn till midnight or 2 a.m., and then you'd be up trying to train dogs and feed cows and feed dogs. And it just got to a point where I had to choose one or the other. And my wife and I decided to load up the dogs, move to the mountains, and started being a full time musher in 2013. And we're right next door to Nebraska. So I'm back at the ranch 3, 4, 5 times a year. I spend a couple weeks there, up to a month there in the summertime. So I'm still very heavily involved with our ranch operation in Nebraska.
Okay, so you really moved into the mountains, being in Leadville,
Yeah,
10,000 feet up.
we
So,
are 10,000 feet and central Colorado. We're in the heart of ski country, high 14,000 foot peaks all the way around, right by the Continental Divide. We have a really good location.
so how does that translate to snow this year?
We have decent snow, like everybody kind of in the middle mountain states. We've gotten a little snow, but we haven't got really enough to set up a nice trail or really start, running heavy on sleds. I am trucking up into the mountains where I can get on a sled, but as far as our tour operation goes, we are thin, thin, thin. And Sebastian, it was 40 degrees today. It's been 40 for the last 3 or 4 days in a row, and that's unusual for us. Typically, December is a very, very cold month. So light snow, warm days, but I'm still training. I'm getting good training in.
So how long do you have to truck? Like how much of a trek do you have to do?
Oh, it's from the kennel. From the kennel, it's about 10 miles, 12 miles. It's not very far. We go up a little bit, and it's a trail around a lake that actually has great timber and gets kind of a funnel of precipitation in there, and the snow holds really well. So I've been on a sled for 10 days.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
So what distances are you up to?
25. Yep. Our last runs last week, we were able to get 425s in. So good training last week. This week we're doing some short, fun, happy stuff. And next week we'll probably push them back up to 25, maybe up to 28.
So what do you think about going back to the old format, so to speak, at least dog number wise, is having 12 dogs?
I love it. I love it. I love the format currently. I love the old pool and the new format. I think the short stages is the best thing for the race, for the mushers, for the dogs, for the organization. It makes logistics easier. It's a heck of a fun race too. There's a lot of competition with these shorter stages, and I like myself personally. I like a big dog team. I like the idea of driving 12 versus 10, and other more than anything, Sebastian, it's a race in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. More power, more terrain. We're climbing. I think I added it up last year, over 200 miles of racing. We climbed upwards of 20,000 feet in ascending over the course of the race. So I think the more power in the hills, the more dogs you have to get you up and down those mountains, the better. So I am all for the old pool format that we're using this year.
Yeah, when you say tight competition, isn't that the truth? I just looked at the times again. You
Yeah,
know, you being sandwiched there last year in between Rachel Courtney and Sarah Talton, and
yeah,
finishing within minutes of each other after.
yeah. I was ahead of Sarah going into Driggs the last day of the race, the seventh day, and Sarah jumped me in Driggs. So we flip flopped those last 2 days of the race. So it can, I mean, you know as well as anybody, you have to bag a dog or you have a tangle or whatever happens, and that can just flip it by minutes or seconds even sometimes.
So how many dogs you have who have run stage stop?
On varsity this year, I started with 26 dogs on varsity, and I think 15 or 16 of them are older adult dogs. Then I have a really nice group. The other 10, 11 would have been, like young yearling 2-year-old dogs that are new to the race this year. And I think that's important to have a mix of veterans and young dogs. So I'm really fortunate with the veterans that I have on the team this year. I had to retire a couple dogs last year that were really the core of my front end, and they had ran a ton of races with me. And as you know, it's tough saying bye to those old experienced veterans because you trust them, they trust you. So this was the first year in quite a few years I really had to focus on leader development and bring up the youngsters. And but it's made me a better musher. I think it's going to make my team better, and it's been a really fun training year.
Well, and the guys in the tour teams will be super happy having those experienced dogs.
Oh yeah, it works both ways because those, as you know, the experienced race dogs that kind of get cut from varsity, they move over to the puppy team. So now they're over with those young yearlings and, doing everything they need to do to get them in shape to jump on varsity next year. So it's comes full circle, and it's really cool.
Are you going to stay home till the race, or are you going any pre-racing or West Yellowstone or anything, or what's your plan?
I would love to go to the West Yellowstone thing. I think they're doing a really cool thing there before the race and after the race. But geez, I didn't get signed up in time, and that Yellowstone special, I think it's full already. And Sebastian, the tour schedule it will kind of dictate what I do after stage stop. I put so much effort into, training and logistics of getting the tour kennel ready, the race team ready. And then when I leave for 2 weeks, kind of when I come back, I just regroup. And if I have time to go do something, great. But I put so much effort and energy into stage stop that if something happens to come up, it'll be fun. But if not, we love going to Wyoming every year.